The nurse told me she wasn't seeing any pediatric trauma patients by that name. Adrenaline filled my veins. We called 6 hospitals. Sierra's phone was still going straight to voicemail, so we did what any responsible adult would do in that situation. We broke into her home using the spare key under her mat. Except the door was already unlocked. And when I walked in, I expected to see Eli lying in bed with Sierra standing over him. But no. We found him sitting on the couch, playing on his tablet, surrounded by empty cereal bowls, completely uninjured. As soon as he saw us, he wrapped his arms around my waist and practically started cheering, "Yay, hello." I peeled him off of me and gently asked where his mommy was. "She left 3 days ago. She told me she couldn't afford a babysitter, but that you would be back from your vacation soon to take care of me." "So you didn't get into any accidents or injuries?" Caleb asked, trying to wrap his head around everything. "Number, why would I be hurt? I can take care of myself," Eli responded, joyful as ever. My blood went cold. I called Sierra from her landline, and this time, she picked up. The first thing I heard was the song California Girls blaring in the background. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, slurring her words together. "What the FIS going on, Sierra?" "What do you mean?" she asked, as if playing dumb would work in the situation. "You told me Eli was in surgery." I was then interrupted by the sound of Sierra cackling like a witch. "Ha ha ha ha, I knew if I lied then you wouldn't come back. You were being super extra about your honeymoon. Must be nice having money to throw around while single moms struggle." Behind me, Eli asked in a small voice if he could live with us. He said Mom didn't want him anymore. Sierra must have heard him through the phone because her tone shifted, instantly venomous and cruel. She accused me of turning her son against her and said this had been my plan all along. That's when I finally realized Sierra wasn't some misunderstood single mother. She was a washed-up, irresponsible, self-absorbed sociopath. And I was ready to make her pay. I hung up on her mid-rant. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. Caleb was already in the kitchen making Eli a proper meal. The kid had been living on cereal for 3 days. 3 whole days. Alone. He was 4 years old. I sat down next to Eli and tried to keep my voice calm. I asked him if he'd been scared. He shrugged and said Mommy told him he was a big boy and said she'd done it before when I was busy. My stomach dropped. This wasn't the first time. I pulled out my phone and called child services right there. The lady on the other end sounded tired, like she'd heard it all before. She took down all the information and said someone would come by tomorrow. Tomorrow wasn't good enough for me. I told her a 4-year-old had been abandoned for 3 days. She said since he had food and shelter, it needed to go through proper channels, but assured me they'd prioritize the case. I wanted to scream. Caleb finished making mac and cheese and brought it over. Eli ate like he hadn't seen real food in days. Between bites, he told us about how he'd been too scared to go outside, how he'd run out of milk on day 2, how he tried calling me but didn't know my number by heart. Each detail made me angrier. After dinner, we gave him a bath and put him in our guest room. He fell asleep clutching my hand. Caleb and I stayed up all night discussing what to do. We couldn't just leave him here when Sierra got back, but we also couldn't legally take him. We were stuck. The next morning, a social worker named Ramona showed up. She was maybe 50, wearing a wrinkled blazer and carrying a clipboard. She interviewed Eli, gently asking about his time alone. He told her everything he told us. She took notes and photos of the empty fridge and the mess, then she pulled me aside. She said they'd open a case but warned me these things take time. Sierra would get a chance to explain herself. The system favored keeping families together. I told her that was bullpoop. She just shrugged and said that's how it works. 2 days passed. Eli stayed with us and we fell into a routine. Breakfast, cartoons, lunch at the park, afternoon nap, dinner, bath, bed. It felt natural. Right. Caleb was amazing with him reading stories and teaching him card games. On the 3rd day, Sierra showed up at our door. She looked like hell, hair greasy, makeup smeared, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. She demanded Eli back immediately. I stood in the doorway and told her no. She tried to push past me, but Caleb stepped up behind me. Sierra started screaming about her rights as a mother said we were kidnapping her son. The neighbors came out to watch. I stayed calm and told her to leave or I'd call the cops. She laughed and said, "Go ahead." Said she'd already called them herself. Sure enough, 10 minutes later a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers got out looking bored. Sierra ran up to them crying, saying we'd stolen her baby. The officers separated us to get both sides. I explained everything. The abandonment, the lies about the accident, the 3 days alone. I showed them my phone records, the calls to hospitals. They nodded and took notes. Then they went inside to talk to Eli. He was coloring at the kitchen table when they asked if he wanted to go home with Mommy. He shook his head hard, said he wanted to stay with Aunt Claire and Uncle Caleb, said Mommy left him alone and he was scared. The officers exchanged looks. They came back outside and told Sierra she needed to leave. Said this was a civil matter now, not criminal. Told her to work it out with child services. She lost it completely and started screaming that I'd brainwashed him, that I'd always been jealous of her, that I couldn't have kids so I was stealing hers. The officers warned her to calm down. She didn't. They ended up putting her in the back of the patrol car to cool off. Before they drove away, one officer pulled me aside. He said to document everything, take pictures, save texts, record calls if legal in our state. Said I'd need it. I knew then this was just the beginning. Sierra wasn't going to give up easily. She'd rather destroy everything than admit she was wrong. But I looked back at Eli, peacefully coloring at our table, and knew I'd fight. He deserved better than her. He deserved a real family, and I was going to make sure he got one. The next morning I woke up to 27 missed calls, all from Sierra. My phone screen glowed accusingly in the dim morning light, each notification a reminder of the storm I'd unleashed. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I already knew what they'd say. Threats, manipulation, fake tears, and promises she'd never keep. The same toxic cocktail she'd been serving for years. Caleb made pancakes while Eli watched cartoons, his small body curled up on our couch like he belonged there. The smell of butter and syrup filled our kitchen, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Eli giggled at something on TV and Caleb hummed while he cooked. For about an hour, I let myself believe this could work. Then the doorbell rang. It was Sierra's brother Derek, wearing his fancy lawyer suit that probably cost more than our mortgage payment. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, and his smile was sharp as a blade. He handed me an envelope with theatrical formality and said I'd been served. The paper felt heavy in my hands, like it was made of lead instead of trees. I opened it right there on my doorstep, my fingers trembling slightly. Custody petition. Emergency hearing scheduled for next week. The legal language swam before my eyes, but the meaning was crystal clear. Derek smirked and said Sierra had hired him to get her son back, said I didn't stand a chance against a real lawyer, said blood was thicker than water and judges always side with biological mothers. I slammed the door in his face hard enough to rattle the windows. I spent the rest of the day calling lawyers, my fingers cramping from dialing so many numbers. Most wanted $5,000 just to start speaking in smooth professional voices that turned cold when I mentioned payment plans. We had maybe $2,000 in savings after the ruined honeymoon we'd had to cancel when Eli came to stay. I found one guy named Miles who'd take payments. He sounded young but eager, his voice cracking slightly when he talked about fighting for children's rights. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown while Caleb watched Eli at the park. Miles looked even younger in person, maybe fresh out of law school with an ill-fitting suit and an earnest expression. His briefcase was new, the leather still stiff. But he listened carefully and took detailed notes in surprisingly neat handwriting. He said we had a good case, but warned me Derek was known for playing dirty, said to expect surprises in court, things that would make me angry, things that weren't true but sounded believable. I asked what kind of surprises. He just shook his head and said to document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. That night, Eli had nightmares that shook the whole house. He kept crying for his mom, then pushing me away when I tried to comfort him, his small fists batting at my hands. It broke my heart into a million pieces. The kid was so confused, caught between loving his mother and knowing she'd left him. In the morning he apologized for being bad, his voice so small I could barely hear it. His eyes were puffy from crying, and he wouldn't meet my gaze. I told him he wasn't bad. Just scared, and that was okay.